Why is podcasting so hot right now? Join me today on the Fanny Dunagan Show as we talk about how I create podcasts to grow your business with Ana Xavier. Join me. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Fanny Dunagan Show. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from. Thank you for joining me today. We are going to be talking all about podcasting today. So make sure you settle in your chair or couch or office, wherever you are, and enjoy the show. In the meantime, let's see who has joined us. I saw a whole bunch of people here. Dolores, Yolanda, welcome Yolanda from sunny Frisco. David from Grand Saline, Texas. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And there's Dolores. Welcome, Dolores Garcia. We have Jorge Manuel Ribeiro. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Welcome, Jorge. This is awesome. And Chandra, always great to see you, Chandra. Welcome. And it's finally sunny here in Dallas, Fort Worth. We've had a whole week of rain and it's been nuts. So feeling super happy with all the sunshine here. Sally, welcome. Where is she? There she is, Sally. Welcome, Sally. And Dawn Williams. Hey, Dawn. Dawn just launched a new podcast. So Dawn, you'll have to mention your podcast in the comments and let people know so they can subscribe. Dawn Williams, a great sales coach of mine. Welcome, Dawn. And who else? We have Joe. Joe from Princeton, Texas. Welcome, Joe. Thanks for joining us. Okay, this is great. Roxanne. Roxanne's here. For those of you that are interested in looking into franchising businesses, make sure you connect with Roxanne. And in addition, she's just an all-around great person. So make sure you connect with Roxanne as well. Okay, folks, let's get to it. I also want to remind everyone, make sure you network with each other in the comments. Use this time to meet other people in the network, in the community, and I challenge you to connect to 3 new people in the comments of the show. There's some really great, giving, wonderful, kind people in the comments here, so you definitely want to connect with them. And tag your friends. Tell them to join our show live. We always love having new audience members, and tag them to join. This week's content tip of the week is actually a productivity tip. I've actually been feeling kind of overwhelmed lately. I've been juggling a lot of things, and so I started studying and looking for more productivity tips and ways to kind of be more effective and be more productive. And so I wanted to highlight 3 things that I've learned and adopted and how that's kind of helped me be more productive. So the first thing I want to do is I want to give a shout out to Daniel Pink. This is a great book called When, and he talks all about scheduling your different activities depending on your energy levels throughout the day. So if you're a morning person, then schedule your creative and planning work in the mornings. And then when you're feeling kind of sluggish, that 2 p.m. mark in the afternoon, then that's when you should schedule your meetings and more of your social activities. So he definitely talks about how to schedule your day so that your activities match your energy level. So that's tip number 1. Number 2 is batch your work. I learned that from Jordan Carroll. He is a remote job coach. So if you're looking for remote jobs, make sure you connect with him. Jordan taught me the concept of batch working. So group your activities together. Group all your meeting activities together, group all your creative activities together, group all your business development activities together, your sales activities, whatever they are, group them together so that then your mind is in the same, mindset and framework as you tackle those tasks. And number 3, I learned from Lisa Harrington. So shout out to Lisa Harrington, a wonderful leadership coach. And she taught me the concept of designating a day to have no meetings. Make it your admin day, make it your thinking day. That's the day where, for all you entrepreneurs out there, you're doing invoicing or doing business development or thinking through or planning or strategy. So pick one day of the week that you can maybe designate as a no meeting day so that you can kind of sort through all your thoughts and do planning and creative work. So those are my 3 productivity tips. I hope you find those useful as well. And then for more tips, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. I have over 30 videos there talking all about different content tips as well. And that's Fanny Dunagan. Okay, now I want to bring on my community manager, Ann Small. We have a new segment that we call the Creator of the Week, where we highlight different and amazing creators on LinkedIn so that you can also follow them and learn from them and get the latest news and tips. So Ann, who is our Creator of the Week?
Okay, everybody. So the big announcement, Creator of the Week is Mark Williams. You guys need to check out Mark Williams. Yes, he is also known as Mr. LinkedIn. Fanny's going to, there's his profile there. Let me tell you a little bit of why we picked Mark this week. We'll give you 3 reasons why. First of all, Mark will give you the latest LinkedIn features. The things that me and Fanny saw through some of his posts just was life-changing on here. Some of the tips and tricks, like you'll see creator mode. What is creator mode? Look at Mark Williams' newsletter to see what that is, because it makes a huge difference. Again, his newsletter, it's a LinkedIn newsletter, guys. So you'll see on the posts as he has his creator mode on that you can either subscribe, or it'll show that you're already subscribed. And either way, you can read the newsletter right there on LinkedIn. What a great way to promote your content. So you have both of those things. And let's not forget what we're talking about today, podcasting. Mark has a podcast. You'll see everything in there and every tip and trick on LinkedIn that you could possibly imagine. Way to go, Mark.
Thank you, Anne. And for all of you out there, make sure you connect with Anne Small. She is the community manager of the show and all around great, what I call the engagement queen. So make sure you connect with Anne here on LinkedIn. Thank you so much. Okay. And now let's get to the star guest of the show. We are going to be talking all about podcasting. And I want to bring her on now. Her name is Ana Xavier. Ana, welcome to the show.
Hi, Fanny. Thank you for having me. I am so excited to finally be in your show, because I think it's been around, I'd say probably like half a year that we've been connected. By the way,
Yes.
Shout out to Lindy Chapman, that she was the one that introduced us both.
Yes, Lindy.
She's in the comments as well. I was checking the comments.
I love it.
Yeah, so I love actually your tips of the week were amazing, because first off, I love your tips. They always trigger a part of my brain that I'm like, the creator brain, that I was like, oh yes, I need to try that. And I love just processes and systems, and that's something that actually we're going to be talking a little bit about today when you create your
Absolutely.
podcast. Yes. So
absolutely.
I have to say. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
In the meantime, I wanted to read everyone your bio.
Of course.
Because first of all, if you want to learn anything to do with podcasting or anything to up your podcast game, you need to connect with Ana Xavier. Ana is the founder and CEO of the Podcast Space, a mission-based business that supports podcasters working towards the betterment of their communities. She and her work and team work exclusively with professionals who are passionate about helping and educating their tribe while growing their business organically and authentically. She recorded her first podcast way back in 2008. Oh my gosh, even before she graduated from her bachelor's degree in Science of Communications and Journalism at the University of Porto in Portugal, at a time when podcast technology wasn't even as democratized as it is today. And through her 10 years of experience in podcasting, radio, digital marketing, and the nonprofit world, Ana has developed a deep and holistic understanding of communications and technology. And through her work at the Podcast Space, she has helped podcasters with all stages of podcasting, including launching it, editing, distribution, and strategy, alignment, audits, and consulting, all of those things. In fact, I hired Ana to help me with my audits and auditing my podcast, and she had all kinds of great tips. So, Ana, how did you even get into this world of podcasting? Like, why podcasting of all things?
Yes. Well, funny enough, yes, 2008 was the first time where I actually got into podcasting. It was while I was in college, and it's very different than today, because you had to do all of these technical things that you don't today. So I'm so happy that on these 3 years, technology has developed in such a way that we can really get a message out there without having, podcasters who don't have the ability to get all in-depth training and on technology and editing and all of that. They can just spread their message, connect with their communities in a much simpler way, which I am very happy about, because because you have a good idea doesn't mean that it needs to be in the back of your closet forever because you can't execute it. So I have a really varied experience with podcasting, because I've done broadcasting in Portugal, right? And it was very different than when I moved to the UK and I did online and community radio, which is something that is completely different, and just like hosting styles and trends, just obviously podcast is so different from country to country. And that's actually something that people should consider when launching their show, is considering, am I launching to reach a local or a national audience, or is it worldwide? Because it's something that, you know, like for instance, by giving proper examples, probably that will help people. Podcasting in Portugal, it's still, if you are a podcaster, you're likely to be told, oh, you need to have that deep voice and you need to speak a little bit slower. In the US, for instance, people are told to be energetic and, you know, kind of like grip your audience immediately and be catchy. Whereas, you know, in the UK, they embrace all styles of hosting, and it's phenomenal to just see the differences and understand how exciting it can be and fun. And that's a challenge for everyone at home. Just listen to a different podcast everywhere in the world and kind of like, oh, I wonder what a podcast sounds, you know, in Britain. And Spanish podcasting is growing insane. So there's a lot of people hosting podcasts in Spanish and English, and actually distributing to those different audiences, just because it's growing so much in popularity. So
for those of you in the comments, let us know if you listen to podcasts. I would love to see who listens to podcasts right now and who's interested in doing podcasts themselves. Let us know in the comments below. And I just want to do a quick shout out to Volta, because for those of you that noticed, I don't know if you noticed my intro, my countdown intro has a new look, and all those watercolors are done by Volta of the Color Snack company. So make sure you all connect with her as well. And I wanted to give her a quick shout out. But Anna, like, why is podcasting so popular? It feels like, I don't know if it's the pandemic or what, but it's gotten so popular in the last year or two. Like, what are you seeing as far as the trend here?
So the pandemic absolutely kind of like sped up the consumption of podcasts, because people suddenly found themselves within the two situations, which is one, I have plenty of time in my hands, and two, I need company. I want company. And podcasting is such an intimate experience. It's not like watching TV. It's more intimate. So as a host, you're able to connect with your listener, because there's normally people will listen to podcasts on a one-on-one basis, right? And that definitely sped up the interest in podcasting. And I had a lot of clients that approached me because they were saying something like, I always wanted to start a podcast, but I could never find the time. And I was like, yep. And now is a good time, because it takes a little bit of time, you know, maybe 2 months to get like actually comfortable hosting a show. And so that was really exciting to meet all of these people that had amazing podcast ideas, and they were forced to sit down. On the other hand, I met these coach actually from London, who I met through some different networking. And she was telling me that podcasting changed her life. She just told me, I learned so much. And because I'm, you know, working around the house, she works from home. So it's kind of like going for a walk. All of these things are happening. And she's like, I get so much knowledge while multitasking. And that is the key to the podcast success, which is, it's not like video where you need to be engaging at all times. You can listen to a podcast while you're driving. You can, if you're a podcaster, you can reach your listeners when they're walking, when they're,
folding laundry, doing dishes,
cooking. If it doesn't require, if it's not a recipe that requires a lot of attention, you can, sprinkle in a podcast and listen and really learn all of these things that you wouldn't be able to do before, because it requires, you can't read. People can't get, as a podcaster, you can't express your emotion and your intentions and your passion and your excitement on a podcast in a way that you can, in a podcast. A blog is not the same. A video, you may be camera shy, so you feel a little bit daunted or, self-conscious. So it is so good to do an audio podcast that can really get you comfortable, because it is bare bones. If you do not share good content, people won't listen. And that's one of the things that is kind of almost like a content tip.
Catch 22. Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't release good content, you won't be able to catch an audience because you have nothing else to distract them from. You don't have amazing lighting or graphics or all of these other things, or your looks, all of these other things that you can, develop an interest in that, will distract your listener from. Exactly. You just talk. Yes, that is correct. So that's mainly the reasons.
Some of the comments here, Dolores, she's saying, yes, that's why I love podcasts. You can multitask while I listen. Yolanda as well, she listens to podcasts. Virginia had a question, and we're actually going to talk about equipment a little later. So just stay tuned, Virginia. We're going to get to podcasting equipment as well. And there's Lindy. Lindy, she's like, great to see Anna on the show. Yes, absolutely. Lindy, the super connector. For those of you out there, make sure you connect with Lindy Chapman as well. So, Anna, I mean, as far as being a hot trend, but at the end of the day, there's quite a lot of benefits of podcasting, right? Especially for a business owner or even a company to do podcasting. What are some of these kind of benefits that you've noticed from podcasting?
Yeah, so a podcast is incredible because it can serve a lot of different purposes. And you can, I normally say to whoever is wanting to start a podcast, it's like the wild, wild west in a way. So you have a lot of freedom to come up with a genre that maybe hasn't been done yet, something that suits your schedule better. So all of these things that kind of normally in other forms like blogging, it's a little bit, structured, vlogging, same thing in video. You have a lot of different things you have to obey. With podcasting, you can play as much as you want. So that is, like one of the things that matters is that you have the freedom to do a lot of different things and be more artistic than you would with other mediums. And your audience will like that. So mainly the benefits are, you can showcase that expertise in an intimate way that you can't through other mediums. And so you can become an online thought leader. You can grow your online experience on talking. That can prepare you to become a speaker because you'll get comfortable having all of these conversations with yourself, monologues, if that's if you're doing a solo show. You'll get comfortable interviewing people. So talking to other people will get you more comfortable interacting. So if you want to use a podcast for lead generation, you can, because you'll have a kind of unparalleled access to these people that, if you were just doing a sales pitch, on a video, it can get quite stiff. You can't showcase who you are, but through a podcast, you're able to do that preparation with your guest. You're able to do the show, so you can showcase your expertise. You can showcase who you are, what values you have, and then lastly, at the end of the show, you can just like hold on to your guests and just say, hey, let's talk a little bit more about, what you do. How can I help you? And it's a way more, it's an organic way to really start talking business, talk shop with someone who just had, right? And so that is another benefit. So preparing you for lead generation in a more comfortable setting. So if you're an introvert, that's a great way. If you don't like selling, that's a great way. So those things, marketing content can be created on a podcast, and it can be then distributed on a way, I would say probably the best way to create marketing content, because you have an audio file. If you do a video, you have an audio and a video file. You can take quotes out of it. You can do audiograms, which are normally the teasers. You can make a lot of multimedia content that we know today is the best way to engage with your audience on social media. So, if you are blogging, it can be a little bit tricky to market that on Instagram, for instance, right? Or on a more visual social media account. So you got to consider those elements. Then if you're like, I don't like writing, like I personally don't like writing as much as I like doing interviews and talking to people. So that's another way to create content that, is just an easier way to connect to your audience through your voice, while doing something that you enjoy more. And then last but not least, really creating marketable content that will grow your business, because we all know that SEO is important. So creating all of these content that is engaging and interesting to your audience, and that they can find organically on Google, it just helps your overall brand. I hope I shared enough.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's awesome. Yeah. And I do find that like there's something about hearing someone's voice in your head, because most of the time we're listening to it on our headphones, right? So it's almost like a voice in our head telling us things. And it seems to kind of like seep in deeper almost, right? Wouldn't you say? Like, especially like if I'm out on a jog or a walk and it's just this voice talking, and I find it both like a great learning exercise as well as like just kind of getting to know that speaker or that host or that guest better.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't read emotion. You can't, if you're doing a video, you may be distracted by, something that is included in the video, and you want to observe the message as much as you would through audio. Also, it's incredibly intimate, as you were saying. It's just you and that person, is an uninterrupted way to get your listener / ideal client attention. And so, you can use a podcast in all of these ways. If you're a small business, or if you are a big corporation, you can use podcasting to onboard people. And so let's say your employees are driving back to the office. They're able to listen to you in the voice of your leaders, of your C-suite. So it also breaks barriers when you're talking to your employees like that, because I know how he sounds like. I create expectations, right? And so it doesn't,
especially in this virtual world right now.
Oh my God, yes. And it really helps an employee feel part of it. You can talk about culture, right? And talk about how it means to you. You can use storytelling in a way more powerful way than just reading something.
We have a great question from Brian Morrison. Hey, Brian, shout out to Brian of Proxy. And he supplies chiefs of staff to people and organizations. So if you're interested in that, make sure you connect with him. He was a guest last year on my show. So Brian asks, love podcasts. Do you think the future is is leaning towards like professionally edited quality kind of podcasts? Or the kind of starter organic kind of quality is enough? What do you think, Anna?
Well, it depends where you are in your business. Depends how much can you afford. I would say right now, with technology that is available, you can pretty much record a good sounding quality podcast. I think with like anything on video, right? You look at YouTube and you look back and say, maybe 10 years ago, those kind of like homey videos still have great results. People still connect with those. So people actually don't like professionally edited videos because it feels like it's not as authentic. So I think it depends on who the audience is, but I see potential for both, growth for both, depending on what is your goal with a podcast. But 100%, I think that we're gearing toward a more professional kind of like, I would say even more like setting up a standard in podcasting. And the truth is, if good quality audio matters, but good content matters most. When good audio quality matters more is when it gets in the audio quality gets in the way of your message. So if you're, for instance, using your computer's built-in microphone and you're not wearing headphones, it will sound echoey. If you do not care about, wearing an external microphone and providing good audio quality, and if it's like wind and jewelry jiggling, that will distract the listener. So that's what I think that people need to look out for. Professional edited podcasts are definitely the golden standard that everyone should try to aim for. Right. But it is also expensive. At least has some expense connected to it. So
I always think back to this great quote that I heard from Sean Cannell. He's a YouTuber. He always says, "Let your days in obscurity prepare you for popularity." So I always feel like, you can start with the most rudimentary equipment, just get it out there, get into the flow, nobody's listening or watching at the beginning anyways, because you're still trying to get the word out, right? Unless you're some famous, thought leader or movie star or whatever, right? So just do it. Get it out there, even if it's rudimentary equipment. And then as you kind of get into the flow of it, that's usually when I always tell people, then spend the money, buy the fancy equipment and all that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And also just enjoy the journey. And here's something that I worry when people say, I want to start podcasting, tell me how much I need to spend. It's just not good. Here's what matters. And I don't know if you want to segue into that already, the equipment, Fanny? Okay.
Yeah, we can. Did you want to talk about, well, we got a few questions about like just how to get started as well. So, you have kind of like your 5 tips, your 5 steps to starting a podcast. So what would those be?
Yes. Okay. So just to finish what my previous point was, invest in equipment that won't hold you back from actual content creation. Invest in equipment that you can either hire someone to set it up for you and you're good and you're ready to go, or invest in quality content that will get you good results without feeling overpowering and stressful. Way too many people say, I want to start podcasting. They buy all the equipment, which is the fun part, right? Like the gadgets, the toys, they're super excited. And then they just get really frustrated because, I can't figure this out, right? So let's make sure that we start by number 1, which is pretty much start with a podcast idea and make sure that idea is feasible. And what I mean by that is that sometimes everyone says, go for the niche, right? Be specific. But sometimes people go too far down the niche path. And what ends up happening is that they created these kind of like tunnel vision path. And then they did 10 episodes and that was it. If your goal was to do 10 episodes, there's nothing wrong with it. But if you want to do a podcast that is kind of ongoing, so week by week, you may want to consider doing what I call a brain dump, which is a very important part of figuring out if a podcast is sustainable in the long run or if it's aimed at serialized content. So season 1, season 2, like pretty much what Fanny is doing. So doing a brain dump includes thinking about enough topics. I normally say around 32. In which you evaluate stuff like, what are my content pillars? So these kind of like pillars, they will help you create content. And Fanny, you talked about this previously, where you figure out, what am I going to talk about? Let's say you podcast for a year. After that year, you may think, oh my gosh, I don't know what else to talk about. Having content pillars would really help you exactly pinpoint what are the things that you need to talk about. What are the kind of like umbrella topics that will guide you for content creation? And so thinking, do I want to do a solo episode or guests or both? Both are great because you can interview people. That's a great way to grow your podcast organically. You can also do solo episodes in which you can establish that connection that Fanny was saying about you and the listener. It's an intimate relationship. I am sorry for people who say, you can explore your expertise with guests. No, you can't. I personally believe that people are going to think about, these guests are so great. They're saying great stuff. They may say, the other person, the host, actually, like, they're saying good stuff, but they're focusing on the guest. So I think it's important, if you want to use a podcast to grow your online branding and your expertise online, if you want to create that as the lead generation for your business, you need to make sure that you are talking directly to your listener. And so solo episodes are a great way to do that. Now, managing your time as a podcaster will get really overwhelming if you don't plan it ahead. So you may not manage it all. It's just struggling week by week to get content out, to pump something because your listeners got to listen to something. You got to just like work it, and they may fall out of your content standards. So batching is important. What Fanny was talking in the beginning, planning for, maybe you set up a day in the month or a day in the week and you plan all of your content and then record in the same day or schedule different interviews that same week, and then you release it. There's nothing worse than lack of consistency. And we do know that that's really what keeps a brand name or a person being kind of like top of mind, which is consistency. Keeping up with, that project week by week by week by week. If people want to do, for instance, a podcast, they'll see that I share content every day on social media. If they want to start a podcast, they probably will reach out to me because they have seen that I know what I'm talking about. I'm giving them very good tips on how to start a podcast, how to continue growing their podcast. So how that fits into your week is something that is huge. Another tip is don't do it by yourself. If you have the money to spare, consider, maybe hiring a strategist in the beginning, which is what sometimes I do. I sit down with podcasters, I run through what the important and overwhelming part is, and then they take away and they say, okay, you can use this software that is beginner level. It won't be overly complicated. Like, for instance, music production softwares are super complicated. If you go for a platform like Anchor, you can record in the platform and add music and then add your guests. You can do everything live right there. And when I say live, it's kind of live to tape, which means you do it in the moment with the person, and then you can edit that out. So it's way easier like that. So think about also like, what is your comfort level in terms of technology, in terms of promotion, and hire people that will cover the things that you don't want to do.
Hire for our weaknesses, right?
Oh my God, yes. It's so important. And then I think the last one is do not take your podcast and think that that's something else. Your podcast should be fully integrated in your marketing and content strategy, right? And that's the thing when sometimes, let's say, and I guess I'll make it clear with an example. So if you sell plants and you do a podcast, I don't know, on dollhouses, if you're promoting a podcast, people will think, oh, she's the dollhouse person, not she's the plant person. So if you do a podcast about, frequent plant questions, I've done a strategy session with this gentleman here in Dallas that he was like, well, I want to integrate it. I just kind of like want to create that need of, I am the expert. Come to me to answer your plant questions, as well as creating all of that wealth of online content that then it will work with me on SEO, that Google will see all of that content connected to my name and will bring people to my website, particularly because AI now, artificial intelligence can now read audio, which means that it just, it is wonderful because you're creating all of this content and Google's like, I get it. Let's pump up those results to the front page.
Yeah. I mean, one of the great things that I learned from you is the fact that I can actually integrate the podcasts and have them posted on my website.
Yeah.
And there's like, I use Wix for those out there that use Wix, and I'm sure there's other website providers that can integrate that. But to be able to kind of like refresh the podcasts directly onto the website, our website, that just kind of drives more people and drives more traffic to our website, doesn't it?
Yes. And I mean, it just speaks to the importance of having a podcast. All of these websites, every single website, Squarespace, Wix, Weebly, WordPress, all of them have podcast players that are built in. They will not host your audio. Actually, I'm saying this, Squarespace will. But the majority of these will speak to your podcast hosting platform, and they'll say, okay, whenever there's a new episode, display the new episode. And so you don't need to go back and do all of that work where you go in, you got to fill in, all of the title, the information, embed the player on your website, and then go back and publish. Like, that's a lot of extra work. So working smarter will really get you time to do prep for episodes or kind of promotional episode content that you can create all of that in kind of like with that time that you were doing, uploading content.
And actually, I see Don Williams, he's 3 weeks into his podcast launch, posting an episode 5 days a week. Apple update weirdness dependent.
Oh, yes. So what that means is that Apple updated their operating system, and so Apple Podcasts app crashed completely. Actually, yeah, I knew that was going to happen, and so I kind of didn't touch it. And yeah, a lot of podcasts disappeared from the feeds, and that was kind of stressful to a lot of creators.
Oh my gosh.
But again, good thing that Spotify and Google Podcasts are, strong enough that you can always redirect them to other platforms. So that's important.
Yeah. And actually, Dolores's question leads kind of into our next question. She said, I'd love to start a podcast, but I need to find out what I can talk about that people would find interesting. How about you all? Like, what do you have any kind of like tips on how to pick a theme or like what do we talk about?
Right. I would say start by one, what you're passionate about. You always perform better when you're doing that. If you want to use a podcast to grow your business, think about all the questions that people ask you all the time, that you naturally talk about it. And a trick to make that happen is that do not do a 1 hour episode on it. Break it in smaller chunks. Maybe, it can be a 5-minute episode. Like that is enough. One of my favorite podcasters, he podcasts every single day. I think since 1993 or something like that.
Holy smokes.
I know, like it's insane. The gentleman does an inspirational podcast, which is 3 minutes. And normally I would be driving to work when that happened. And I would always have to listen to each episode like 3 times because it was so powerful. It was so kind of mind-boggling. You would like, I need to listen to this again to like really consume what he just said and just like really process it. So thinking about topics that you're comfortable doing, that you can find guests to talk about, really find something that really lights you up, but also that aligns with your business if that's what you're doing. Because I mean, we all have hobbies and that's totally fine. People have, been very successful with podcasts that it was started out as a hobby, something they were passionate about, and then, they've made money out of it and everything. But just think about what do you want that to be, and then try to find the topic afterward, because the goal of a podcast should always be aligned with your long-term goal. Otherwise, if it's just something that you feel like doing in the moment, it's not going to last. And so continuity, again, it is important. Consistency is important. So just keep picking your clients' brains, take notes of all the things. And then normally when you pick one topic, all these little subtopics come out, and then just take like an Excel sheet and just do a brain dump of all the ideas. And when you're really in tune, what people say, the flow, right? When you're in flow with your content, you will find content ideas everywhere. I personally, I am in bed about to fall asleep, and I have a notepad next to my bedside table. And I just, sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, I'm like, oh, that would be a great real idea. And so putting yourself in the shoes of your customers and think, what do they ask me all the time? What do they need help? What is their pain point that I need to solve? And just being in tune with everything in your business that you've spent time explaining to a client, or everything that you really devote energy and think, this is something people need to know about.
Yeah. I saw a question from Neil. I can't find the comment, but he asked about, Clubhouse is a huge popular thing right now. And in a way, it's audio only. So Neil Israel was asking, like, should he spend his time focusing on Clubhouse or podcasting? Do you have any thoughts around those two?
Yes, I do. Actually, you should use both. So Clubhouse is actually it's live, right? Is not when you need it to be. So a podcast and a Clubhouse should be always working in connection with one another. So a Clubhouse can be a great way to drive traffic to your podcast and, engage with your audience, where your audience can talk to you, ask you questions. That can be a great source of ideas to just come up with podcast content later in the year to engage with your listeners and increase engagement overall with your brand. It can also give you a more kind of like personal, intimate version of you, where you can talk to your listeners and kind of engage with them directly live. But at the same time, a podcast, unfortunately, isn't discoverable in the sense of like YouTube, right? So people will always listen to podcasts they were probably very likely recommended, say, your best friend, your aunt, your friends, you saw something on LinkedIn, a connection of yours suggested it. And so it's still very much word of mouth. So you want to make sure that you do those Clubhouses to spread the word organically about your podcast, and then utilize that two-way channel, because people can talk to you. For someone who hasn't been on a Clubhouse before, you can really anyone can join a room and talk to you. So it's so important to make sure that you're not talking to the void, which is one of the podcast mistakes that people do.
Yes.
Not knowing, not creating content, but not reevaluating, who am I talking to? What are their needs? Who is this listener, right? Like, that's the one thing. If you don't know your ideal customer, how can you know, or your ideal listener, how can you know what they need to know about, right? You're kind of like shooting at everything, just all the things. And if you're talking to everybody, you're talking to nobody.
Absolutely. And then, so let's get into that equipment, because several people have asked about it now, and let's just dive right in. Do you need special equipment, and are there certain equipment that you recommend, or what are your thoughts about equipment, Ana?
Okay, so again, what is the most important thing in podcasting? Content first. And then you need to ask two questions. One, the room or the space that I'm recording, can it be altered, or I need to keep it as it is? And then the other question is, what is my budget? Because you can really run the gamut on that. You can spend, $80 on a microphone, and you can spend $500 on a microphone. And so, like, the answer to the first question will really get you a little bit of an idea for the second. So if you can't change your room, like for instance, the room where I'm in, you need to consider, either just using a pop filter, a mic shield, what am I saying? That it's kind of like a cube. It will remove background noise. You can use something like, those cubes that you can get anywhere, or you can order it on Amazon. They go anything from, $20 to, $200. You can also purchase, and this is like extreme, you can actually purchase kind of a booth, a vocal booth that you just assemble, almost like a tent. So you can do that. You can put it out, and you can just like flatten it out when you don't need it. If you can actually change the space, you're going to look for probably a different type of equipment. So there's tiles, like audio acoustic tiles that you can buy. They're actually quite pretty. For all my design geeks out there, I'm kind of one of those people that like, it has to be functional, but it also has to be pretty. And so back in the day, you were looking at those like sound treatment panels, and they weren't looking very pretty. So now today you can actually get really pretty ones that don't ruin your aesthetic. So in terms of
are those foam kind of tiles that I've seen on some YouTubers? Okay.
Yes, those are not very pretty, but you can get sounding acoustic panels that actually have like 3D design. So if you see,
and they're colorful. I've seen like colorful ones.
Yes, and they can get really beautiful patterns that just kind of like are just like really nice, and they look higher end, and they don't cost that much money. So if you can't change your setup, you're going to look for a dynamic microphone. So a dynamic microphone, what it does is that it's less sensitive, and it's also going to help you with, let's say you're also kind of unsure about technical stuff, and you want to make sure that it's also kind of like what I would say safe and kind of foolproof. You're going to go for that type of microphone. And there's the Yeti that is very popular.
That's what I have. Yes.
Yes, there you go.
So when you say dynamic, is that the ones that use a USB to plug into your computer?
Normally, yes. So the dynamic is around like the type of kind of like the type of audio that it can pick up. So normally dynamic are less sensitive, and what it means, it will be more forgiving. And so by doing that, it won't pick up as much. I'm trying to speak in layman's terms as much as possible, because I see a lot of people speaking very complex terms, and it can get confusing to a lot of people. And so what you can do, first off, you can start with something like this. Right? Like your message, just starting is the most important thing. Then everything will fall in place, and you can invest in some microphone, for instance. But a dynamic microphone won't pick up the audio of your neighbors kind of like talking next door, or you someone dropped something 3 rooms. Probably the vibration will pick it up. Those microphones will do a great job at helping you out in the post-production. So making sure that you're not editing all of that background noise. When you're removing background noise, you're removing also frequencies from your own voice. if done incorrectly, you will sound like a robot. So
or you have
gotta
kids
make
running
sure.
around as they come home from school.
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
So if you can invest and you can actually soundproof the room you're in, you're going to look for a condenser microphone. Those are normally higher end. They cost around, like 200 upward. Audio-Technica, if you're looking for brands, Audio-Technica has brands there like the condenser and the dynamic. So you can look at that if you're just trying to find one brand to do that. So normally, the condenser microphones are the ones that you need an XLR cable, which I have right behind me. That will require a power source that is not your computer, and will need an audio interface between your computer and the microphone. So that means that they're a little bit more complicated.
Kind of like stopped. I was like, okay, I'm good with dynamic. Anything else is
and
got too complicated for me.
And I think that some dynamic microphones actually allow you to upgrade. And what I mean by that is taking the USB cable and actually put an XLR cable, and then it becomes from digital to analog audio. So you can actually purchase, if you're thinking long-term, purchase a microphone that will really be good for the long term. And I can almost imagine I'm going to get a little bit of comments on the comment section saying the Yeti is a terrible microphone. The Yeti is a great microphone, but a lot of people, it's user error. And you can sound vocal booth ready if you use, a closet. But it needs to be set in the right mode. And so, and mic level, to me, that's mouth level, mic level. It is an easy way to remember. Mic and lips, right?
Yeah.
So, like here. So the closer it is, and if you like straining, I have, on our website, if you don't mind pulling it up, Fanny.
Yes, absolutely.
So we have resources for podcasters, and we just finished an interview which was amazing with an Irish vocal coach, and she taught us some vocal exercises on how to.
Is this the page?
Yes, that is the page, correct. So if you scroll down a little bit. There you go. So you have resources there that will help you if you're just starting. All of that content is beginner level because I am passionate about helping people kind of get their idea off the ground. And if you throw too many complex things from the get-go, I don't know about you, but I feel very overwhelmed, and I'm like, I can't do that right now. So let's take little steps and move toward growing, right? And that's what my whole mission is about, is empowering people to grow their podcast. But it's not about like, this is the microphone, this is the strategy. Let's look at what you have, what your circumstances are, and adapt to those. And then, if you grow, if you monetize all of those things, then we can talk about how you up level from there. But getting your basics right is important to move then to a level where, you can do all of those changes. But again, baby steps.
Absolutely. So for those of you that want more resources about podcasting, you definitely have to check out Anna's website, thepodcastspace.com. Oh my gosh, as I was just scrolling through, you have like so many great articles in here. This is amazing. This is awesome. Look at all this, guys. So make sure you check out thepodcastspace.com and then look for resources for podcasters. Absolutely. Now you mentioned something about monetization, because there was a question from
I saw it as well.
Yes. I think was it Dolores, right? Was it Dolores?
Yeah, I think
yes.
Maybe.
What are the ways to monetize your podcast?
Yes, let's talk about that.
Let's talk about money.
Yes, let's talk about money, particularly because there's around 5 to 6 ways to monetize mainly. And so it depends what I think that really thinking long-term really helps, because the best ROI in podcasting, it is really using a podcast as the lead generation tool for your business. Nothing will beat that, right? People want to get excited about sponsorships and say, I want to do sponsorships. It's actually a little bit of work finding people. It's not impossible. It is easy if you already know someone in your network that aligns with your podcast. And so you can find sponsorships like that. There's also websites that help you. That you go create your website. You go create your profile and say, hey, this is what my podcast is about. This is how many listeners I have a month or downloads I have, every single episode, And then they will pair you up with brands. So you can do that as well. Podcast platforms, hosting platforms, will actually pay you to do that as well. So they will put ads on your show. You only kind of select where they need to be. So it's pre-roll, mid-roll, and post-roll. So beginning, middle, end. So you can do that. You can also talk directly to someone and say, I want you to sponsor my show, and I'll run an ad. Now, thinking about monetizing, you probably want to think about it like big picture. So website, social media, YouTube, and then, obviously the audio in itself, stories, shout out on social media, all of these different things that you can think about monetizing. You can also think about it in another way, right? You can say, okay, I am going to do these podcasts. I am going to create content. I'm going to generate traffic to my website. And then, as people are there, also monetize through Google Ads. It's kind of like a little different, but still some people do that because they know that multimedia content beats just words no matter what. So that's another way to do it. I would say the other way that I find people can monetize is just kind of like promoting, doing like those shout outs on social media and trying to get the business through there, which is a little bit of lead generation. Some people do that. I'm not, it's one of those that I don't think works. It's not like a perfect solution, right? So normally the best ROI is doing that. Also, if you're selling a book, you can create content to sell your book, your services, or really, like if you have other things you can do. This is one of the, I've seen them being done like this. Is a little bit complicated, but having two businesses and creating the podcast on the other business, but having to sponsor your other business, that's something that you can do as well.
I love it. And I saw a great tip in here. Don Williams shared some of his favorite mics, the Blue Yeti, the Rode Procaster,
Yes,
and the Countryman B6.
I've never heard about the Countryman B6, but sounds amazing.
Yeah. And Neil says he likes the Yeti.
Yes.
He uses it for his commercial videos.
A tip, can I just say something about the Yeti?
Please.
The Yeti is great because you can record background noises as well, which can be great if you are someone that works in the outside and you want all of the ambient noise with the birds, the tractor in the distance. It creates an atmosphere that you don't need to, in post-production, overlap, right? Super smart. And also you can create, pre-COVID times, you could just have multiple speakers around the same table, or just like two people, and you just change the mode. It's very versatile like that. And then you record all of those without having to buy 7 microphones or 4 microphones and the audio interface, because you can't have, let's say, 7 microphones and with a USB cable and run them into the same computer. Your computer is going to be like, I don't know, this is too much. So it is very versatile. So sorry, like love crush for Yeti microphones. They're great.
Here's an interesting question, Anna.
Okay.
Someone said, aside from business, for people in job transition that might want to increase their visibility and develop their brand, what do you think about podcasting for like brand visibility and those in job transition?
Yes, it's pretty much the same. Think about it yourself as a business, right? You are your own brand. So you can do a podcast for 2 things. I love actually that question because I get some of my podcast clients, they want to increase awareness to become a thought leader and get more work out of those. So if you're an industry expert trying to find the next gig or trying to find a role, you can network with people in an easier way and really get to those decision makers faster. So it is in the same way, the same thing, but you just use it with a different purpose, which is getting the job. Creating content online really, I think like it's just paramount today. If people Google you and they can't find anything about you, they're like, are you stuck in the past? Can you use technology? Are you who you are? Are you a ghost? There's all of these horror stories of people being hired and they didn't have the expertise. By showcasing that, you're really getting yourself ahead of the competition, because someone may say, oh, hey, I'm applying for this job. I've actually done my podcast on this topic. I know your industry, I know that this company is a leader in this industry. Actually, I had your CEO 2 years ago. Figure out. And they may be
it really sets you up as an industry leader, right?
Right, and you may be able to negotiate a higher salary, for instance. And all of these things that really matter on when someone is doing that job search. Think about who also is on the other side, and they may be looking for what things you do. I mean, it's a no-brainer if you have a candidate who demonstrates their knowledge on a podcast every single week or every month, and then someone who you just, you have their word for it. But if you can really show them your expertise, oh my gosh, you're just getting ahead of everyone. And they also are going to figure out like how you talk, personal things about you, like, do you stutter? Then if someone in the team may stutter as well, they're like, this is my guy. Like we bond immediately without you even stepping in the room. So
I have a quick, time just flies, but I want to get to this question because you mentioned it a little bit, but there's just, and even when I started, I didn't realize there's just so many possibilities, but there's quite a lot of podcast platforms. What are some of your favorites or ones that you would recommend?
Yeah, so there's a distinction that needs to be made, and that's actually why a lot of podcasters struggle with understanding a little bit of this in the beginning. Seems very confusing. So there's something about podcast distribution channels and podcast uploading channels. Let's call it like that, right? So you have distribution and management or uploading. And so, for instance, Spotify. Spotify is not an uploading platform, right? So you use that to listen to things. But for instance, Apple Podcasts is actually, that's not a good example because they kind of like shifted. So Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, TuneIn, those and pretty much like 30 more are platforms that are about distributing your content. Think about it. In the US, you mainly have these 3 or 4 ones that I talked about. But if you go to China, they actually have their own podcast platforms. If you go to South America, there's a specific platform they use as well. Europe, same thing. India, they have a specific one. So by having your podcast on these podcast uploading platforms, let's call them like this again, so that to streamline it, you have very different ones. So you have Spreaker. It's like speaker with an R. Some of my clients are there. Podbean, Libsyn, and then something that I'm checking on now more, and kind of like more interested in. I think I may be talking into. I've already created content for them, so I'm more aware of what they do. So Sounder FM is a platform that is using a lot of AI, so a lot of machine learning technology to help you with organic SEO, picking of like good titles, descriptions. Fanny, you are on Anchor FM. Anchor FM is also
I love Anchor.
Yes, so Anchor actually is a great platform to just start because everything is built in there. Now, if you want to take a podcast somewhere else, if you're thinking about growing your podcast to a level where you just, you are in the business and you can pay for all of these things, probably paying for, a Sounder FM or a Spreaker or a Podbean is a good idea, just because it's more limiting when you are on Anchor. Actually, I forgot to say, a way to monetize as well is through these podcast hosting platforms, the uploading ones. They're called hosting platforms because they have all of your content, and then they say, "Oh, do you want to monetize? We'll play the ads." And so,
yes, Anchor does that. Yeah.
Yes. So, Anchor was actually bought by Spotify. And so that's I hope I was clear enough on explaining the differences and how you access both of those.
So for all of you out there, I mean, this is I almost feel like I need to watch this again because there's so much great content, so much tips and advice to unpack. You can always catch the replay of this show. It's immediately available right after this live session. It's on YouTube, Facebook, as well as LinkedIn. But for those of you that want more information and that want to kind of like, up your podcast game, you need to hire Ana. I did. And she just has amazing advice. But thepodcastspace.com, right, Ana? And
Yes.
People can sign up for your newsletter, right?
Yes.
On the website itself?
On the website. They go on the website and they can access the social media accounts. I'll be honest, Instagram is the place where I'm most active on. And you can see a lot of videos and resources being shared 5 to 6 times a week. And so the podcastspace.com is a place where then if you scroll all the way down, you will actually not on this page because it's a different type of page, but at the end and on the home page, a pop-up will show up like, do you want to be part of our team? Sorry, what am I saying? Do you want to be a part of our kind of community?
Newsletter.
And then you can fill that up. And it will get all the articles that we share every other week on your inbox.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ana. Stay put. I just want to close out and announce some of the upcoming events here. For those of you out there that are in technology, be sure to join us on May 25th. At the Las Colinas Country Club. We are in person now, the Association of Business Technology Professionals. The Bill Wooditch, the best-selling author of Fail More, will be our guest speaker, and he's going to talk all about moving from fear to purpose-driven action in times of uncertainty. So you can register at abtpdfw.org for all you tech professionals out there. And I also want to give a shout out to my upcoming guests, Heidi Torres. She is going to be talking all about networking. She wrote a new book around networking. She interviewed a whole variety of folks from all kinds of industries. And you don't want to miss that if you want to up your networking game. So make sure you tune in Thursday, May 27th in 2 weeks for her as well. And in the meantime, I want to thank you, Ana. Thank you so much. So many great nuggets, so many great tips. Everyone, you all have to kind of like rewatch this. There's so much to unpack. But thank you, Ana. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your insights. And for those of you out there, check out the podcast space. And thanks for your time, Ana.
Thank you, Fanny. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm so happy that I was able to answer a lot of podcast questions. So thank you for having me.
Definitely. Make sure you follow her on Instagram as well. And for those of you out there, make sure that you continue to shine your light, share your message, share your gifts with the world through video. Thank you for tuning in this week. It's always a pleasure chatting with you all.